Okay, seems to be a live broadcast and such. See if it works so far. Okay, seems to be a live broadcast and such. See if it works so far. Microphone making a bit of a noise. Hello, microphone. Still making that noise? Yeah, how do I tell? I don't know. Let's try this. Okay, comes and goes. So we'll call that acceptable if it comes and goes. All right, so I guess I'm live. Mostly, although I look kind of dead. The camera, I can't get the camera exposure right. Just all over the place. So not your problem. I'll have to work on it. Or not. But it is what it is. You have to live with it. Really bad at the moment. Maybe it'll improve. Probably won't. Yeah. Must be the screen. So anyway, I moved everything around. So yeah, ruined the lighting. So I have to figure out some new lighting. Anyway, read some comments, I suppose, and then if anybody has any crap to add for my whatever commentary, fine, whatever. So Jeff Hoff, so are you going to actually write something or produce some work? Yes, I've done both of those things that can actually be analyzed at a scientific level. Well, I just mean you either describe something and you say, it's like the video I did on magnetism, the recent one. It's a description that fits the evidence. Now, if you say it doesn't fit the evidence, then you raise your objection. But that's all I can do. All I can do is give you a model that fits the evidence. I don't know what else you're expecting. So that your theory can be tested and compared to textbook physics. Well, the comparison would be my complete explanation in terms of getting to the elemental function. I mean, it's obviously not complete in the sense that it shows you every electron and every photon moving. But as a model, it's complete in that it explains all the phenomenon of attraction and repulsion in magnets. Their theory is to say the word virtual photon. They don't have a theory of repulsion and attraction. They don't have any. So I don't know, it's just, you assholes keep acting as if the established theory is some elaborate theory that has all kinds of details and provides all kinds of insight. Relativity, bent space, virtual photons, magical bent time dimensions. There's no details. Anyway, in other words, what have you been doing in the past 8 years, or whenever it was that you started talking about physics to get yourself closer to your goal of a Nobel Prize in DraftScience? My point is that once I established that it was a unification theory, and that it did actually accomplish what Einstein spent his whole life seeking, which was a unification of the forces. That yes, that's Nobel Prize worthy, asshole. Because it looks from where I'm standing that the answer is night. So again, what else can I do? I can only give you a model. I can say to you, this is how the checkerboard works. I can draw you a picture of a combustion engine, explain how the cylinders go up and down, creates pressure, and the pressure creates heat. And I can only give you a model. You don't like the model? Fine. You don't have to like it. But if you're going to say it's not meritorious, then you have to explain how it fails to answer a question. It doesn't fail, asshole. Fuck you. All right. Orson Welles' beard. I should just block them, right? I mean, I shouldn't even bother reading it. I think you fundamentally must understand what science is. No, I think you do. I think you have a small penis and you're a douche. Real science is where you make models. Exactly what I've done. Fuck you. And based on how useful the model is. So again, this use thing. So if you model thunder as Thor, Thor is doing it, and that model works fine. You throw some virgins in a volcano and you happen to get some good weather, then somehow the model's right because it worked a couple of times. Horse shit. It becomes accepted. Well, if that's why people accept things, it's merely because somehow they get a dollar bill out of it. That's what it looks like. It doesn't look like they actually accomplish anything. For instance, a flat earther could say he is vindicated because his model is very useful in a wide range of normal human activity. Well, I don't see where that would come into play at all. A bizarre theory where millions of people are involved in a conspiracy to hide a completely mundane and uninteresting fact somehow helps you in your daily life to believe that your own parents and everybody you know might be lying to you about fundamental reality. For instance, it makes no difference if the architect believes in a flat earth and uses it as their model because of the scales involved. Well, I think it does make a difference because of gravity being a symmetrically spherical force. So it probably does come into play. Even in the case of railroads, the curvature amounts for such a small amount of variation in the track compared to, so even in the case of railroads, well, what about expansion? Why would you need expansion joints on a flat earth that it isn't required to make curvature into account? However, when you're trying to fly from the Earth to the moon, you must account for the Earth's true shape. Simply when you create a model for gravity, Newtonian, well, this is a long way around. So look, you want to call me a flat earther, that's just bullshit, okay? I mean, you can't associate everybody with everybody. That's just unfair. You have to have some reason to profile people. Unlike flat earthers, I'm inviting people into this room to debunk me. Unlike flat earthers, I have a model that you can't destroy simply with a photograph or a satellite image. Similarly, when you create a model for of gravity, Newtonian physics is perfectly adequate for a great many purposes. Well, Einstein didn't change Newtonian physics. So again, this is just such horseshit. He added detail. He didn't subtract from Newton. Oh, God. I think you fundamentally misunderstand what science is, shithead. All right, Newtonian physics for purposes, but it fails at very high speeds. Well, it says it fails. There's no real evidence that it does fail. And Mercury's not at very high speeds. And we are assuming that relativity fixes about the speed of light have something to do with the precession, Mercury gaining a little bit of velocity and precessing, or losing a little velocity again. I don't know which one it is. When there could be lots of other explanations for a tiny change. And here we have this whole elaborate theory that we have to accept because he has a strangled amount of mathematics to account for a tiny bit of change. And that should be that should say something to you right on the face of it. Why do you need all this strangled mathematics for a tiny change? Anyway, questions about whether space is actually bent or whether space-time is a thing or whether they observed discrepancies in measured time under different gravitational force are really due to their ballet instructor instructing them to dance as they jiggle dildos from one side of the dance floor. It's all this crap. To the other as the twans tip. Oh, okay, so it's a cowboy. No point reading the rest. As we did, where we knew it was a cowboy. So completely nothing, vacuous mush. I think he wrote QED. Okay, we already did that, so thanks. Can I call you Mr. Truth? Jesus. No, it's retarded. Do you actually do experiments to show the debunks you explain? Well, obviously I do, you idiot. And I show other people's experiments. But I took some Faro crap. I looked under a microscope. Well, fuck you. You have to. You have a Faro cell to show it is just the lights. You have a Faro cell and show it is just the lights. Yeah, I showed it. I showed what the ferromagnetic material is doing under a microscope. All right, it's not doing anything remarkable. And then I got some ferro fluid and shined a light on it. And I got the two little things on the side, very ghostly looking little things, two for each light you shine. I understand you can explain what is wrong with everything. I'm saying that if somebody says they're bending light with magnetism and you can demonstrate that no, light is refracting off little pieces of iron oxide, you're not supposed to explain what the truth is. You're supposed to let the lie stand. Can you show with some experiment or demonstration that they are wrong? Yes, that's what I did. This is just, you don't watch any of these videos, do you, you fucking little weasel? An explanation with some plausible explanation. That's what I just provided, a much more plausible explanation than, oh, all of a sudden we magically discovered that light can be bent by magnetism. And we needed a ferrocell to figure that out. So we've done zillions of light experiments with magnets, and never has a photon ever been bent by magnetism. And all of a sudden, a ferrocell's got all the magic power to do that. And you assholes are too stupid to figure out, yeah, that's probably not the right answer. Without a demonstration, is the issue with mainstream science, question mark? I mean, obviously I think mainstream's wrong, but Ken Wheeler's wronger, asshole. A fucking douche. You have a debunk of flat Earth. Nobody should have to debunk it. Nobody, I mean, look, it starts off with, okay, there's a conspiracy involving tens of millions of people who are hiding the truth from you. Santa Claus really does exist, and they're hiding the truth. The 10 million people are part of a conspiracy to tell you a lie because they know the Earth is flat, and they're creating fake satellite images and fake moon programs and fake, all kinds of technology. And then they're going out in the real world, and every time somebody takes a boat out into the ocean, they create fake buildings and fake things to pop up the wrong way to fool you. You know, where the top of the building you'll see first, and then you slowly see the rest of the building. They're all, they have millions of people going out creating fake illusions. I mean, why? This shouldn't even be a conversation. It's so stupid. And only assholes like you keep bringing it up, douche dumbasses. I mean, what? How stupid are you? You really need the flat Earth debunked? Okay, so then Edward Gross say, does it really need to be? I need a debunk apart from light entertainment. That is, it's not entertaining. It's damn fucking frightening. But whatever. Yeah, it doesn't need to be debunked because it's just too fucking stupid. Have a merry one. Keep fighting the good fight. Yeah, well, whatever. Just hope they all get fucking. I hope a big comet called Get What You Deserve lands on this fucking planet and squishes them all. Very good observation regarding the ferrocell patterns. Question is the pattern shown by iron filings on a piece of paper a better representation of the magnetic field? Well, at least it is a representation of the magnetic field. It's clearly not going to show you. I mean, the iron filings want to go into the magnet, so you're forcing them not to. You're holding them back. You're stopping them from doing what they want to do. So in that sense, the lines are arbitrary. But because you've frozen them and stopped them, you're like I said, you're creating the opportunity for them to line up, to repel each other, and to create these lines. But yes, the lines are only a representation of the proportion of the force. So it's a proportional representation. There are no actual lines. There's no It's just representing, it's just showing you how strong the two poles of the magnet are at these different locations. That obviously the north end of the magnet is stronger when you're more towards the north end, and the south end is stronger when you're more towards the south end. It's just a representation of how strong the field is. But there are no lines. The magnet doesn't create any lines. The field isn't in lines. The field, as stated, is just rays of force. And there's two forces, the south force and the north force. And an electron can tell the difference. All right. Representation of the magnetic field, then the dual view shown by the ferrocell. So it's not a dual view. Like I said, we already know that the iron filings aren't showing you the field. They're only showing you a proportional representation of the field strength at different locations. And then the light thing is just a complete perversion of that model. It's just casting light and going with shadows. It's like this bad camera exposure. It's not the truth. It should be noted that in both cases, the iron particles in the filings or the fluid become little magnets themselves. Right, well, that's been noted over and over. And these influence each other. Well, they create another field. They don't change the field that exists. They create more fields. So they create more force. And they pollute it in exactly the opposite way. They don't line up with the original magnet. They line up opposite to it. So quite obviously, they're creating a conflicting field. Do those mutual influences enhance the real pattern, or are they distorting it? Again, there is no real pattern. There are no field lines. The field lines are merely a consequence of the iron filings lining up in the same orientation next to each other, so they have to be separated by a distance. That's it. But there's no real lines. The lines are created by the filings. What is the, again, it's like light coming out of a light bulb. The magnet radiates a straight line force. And the force coming out of one end is subtly different than the force coming out of the other end. And that's why it's a dipole. What is the orientation and strength of the magnetic field at a location between the lines shown in the patterns? It's exactly the same, but nothing can stay there because of the influence of the new magnets being created. So when the iron filings line up, they create a new magnet. The new magnet has control over the local environment. But if you remove the iron filings, there are no lines and there are no spaces. There's just a proportional strength of the field. So I answered the question. So to delete or not to delete? Yeah, they were all questions and I answered them. So, all right, Mr. Natural. Hey, one of my favorite jokes is, what is the difference between a violin and a viola? A viola takes longer to burn. Yes. I mean, bigger might be better. Well, here is something I think needs burning. So passing it on for shits and giggles. Now hold your nose. So it happens to be a video I saw, which is funny. And I had to say, I mean, it's just so bad. So maybe I'll play it because nothing else is going on here at the moment. So I should have it already loaded because I did watch it.
If you take a laser and shine it at a wall with two holes in it, you have the famous double slit experiment, where waves...
All right, so again, there's the assumption, waves, all this, the usual routine. But it's funny, the description of this is so different than the reality. This is Hartley's paradox, wherein an electron and positron. So this experiment was done with electrons and positrons in an interferometer. And here he's talking about the two-slit experiment. Quite bizarre. So we don't have any references here. No links to anything demonstrating that any of this crap could possibly be real.
coming through two slits interfere with each other to be bright in some places on the wall and dark in others. And this works.
So again, another misrepresentation of the fact that the double slit creates two patterns, actually. So this would be the envelope of the single slit, and then there would be bars inside of that, which represent the double slit pattern. So it's actually two patterns. But nobody's paying any attention to that anymore.
Works with quantum particles too, since they behave in wave-like way.
There's no quantum particles. It either is a something or it's a nothing, but there's no such thing as a quantum particle. Just gibberish. It's an electron, it's a something. And I clearly don't think there's anything called a positron. I think it's just a proton with low velocity. But continuing.
Send a cat towards the slits and it'll show up at a point on the wall.
So this is just retarded. Obviously, it won't work with a cat. It won't work with bowling balls. It won't work with baseballs. There is no two-slit effect with bigger objects because obviously the ability for the electrons on the surface to affect some big object is going to be zero. And you can see in the patterns, look, this isn't a big mystery. The bigger the thing they throw through the slits, the crappier the pattern gets. Kind of indicating pretty obviously that whatever's happening has a material weight, and that weight is proportional to what you're throwing through. So you throw photons through, you get the most pattern. You throw electrons through, you get a duller pattern. You throw buckyball atoms through, and you get an almost non-decipherable pattern, indicating that whatever this phenomenon is, it's happening from something, a quanta, something small is doing it, not something big. Let's see, no chatters yet. Any viewers? I mean, I just did this because I figure there's got to be some losers out there who have nothing better to do on Christmas Eve. Got to be a few of you. Yeah, 10. So there's 10 of us who have who really could just don't do Christmas much.
Send a bunch of cats and their accumulation reveals the same interference pattern.
So it's just retarded. So why, they always do this. They have these stupid experiments and they always metaphor them as something else. So instead of telling you exactly what they do, what the experiment actually has in it, they create this metaphorical experiment that has nothing to do with the reality. And they do this with all their quantum entanglement experiments. They always use, well, we have black box A and black box group B, and this is a hard box and this is a white box, white and black and hard and soft. And they use all kinds of metaphorical things to say, oh no, it's positive, polarization, vertical and horizontal polarization. So instead of saying vertical polarization and horizontal polarization, they say hard and soft. Why are they doing that? Oh, that's right, because the experiment's a piece of shit.
As a light wave. Now imagine you add another competing double slit experiment with another cat that shares one of the slits with the first setup. Of course.
Okay, with a different cat. So this is supposed to represent a positron and an electron, which you could never do this experiment with anyway because they would crash into each other.
If you send the second cat over and over towards these slits, the points where it hits the wall will give a similar interference pattern. And at this point here for one cat, and this point here for the other, those cats never show up, no matter how many times you send them through the slits.
So again, there's no evidence that this is done with slits. So there's no experiment cited. So this is all just talk.
Their wave-like behavior causes what's called destructive interference. If cats were light, these points would be in cat darkness. But weird things happen if you send both cats at their double slits at the same time. The top cat goes through the top and middle slits and then towards the wall, and the bottom cat goes through the bottom and middle slits and then towards the wall. And
now they're going to make up some story about how if one cat's in the slit, then this thing can't get through the slit. Just crap.
Things would again go as expected, of course, except that the cats get in each other's way going through the middle slit. Maybe the slit's too small for two cats to fit through simultaneously.
Well, why don't you send the cats one cat at a time?
Or maybe, yeah, maybe one cat is actually made of antimatter, so if both go through the middle slit, they annihilate each other and never make it to the wall. Either way, the situation...
Yeah, well, why don't you prove that? I mean, you should be able to measure how much cat energy you put into the experiment, and then you should be able to measure how much you're getting out of the experiment. That's what scientists do. They measure those kind of things.
The situation is now this. The cats traverse the slits in a quantum superposition of top cat top, bottom cat middle, top cat top, bottom cat bottom, and top cat middle, bottom cat bottom. There's no both cats in the middle in the superposition, since the cats can't traverse the middle slit together.
So we'll just pretend that one part of reality didn't happen, even though, yes, it did.
And since the superposition is missing the both cats in the middle option, the interference patterns change, and it's possible for the cats to end up in the places on the wall where before...
Yes, so again, the experiment looks like shit because the positron is way too big a particle. So that's what's screwing up the experiment. But whatever. I don't think they did this. I don't even know how you would do this experiment. You know, how you do this. How you shoot a positron and an electron at the same time. How do you do that? Into a tiny slit.
Or there was cat darkness. This isn't at all surprising for waves. I mean, different amounts of wave coming through the slits means a different interference pattern. But there's something weird about this when particles are involved. To see why, remember that individually, the cat darkness arose because the cat's superposition went through both slits and interfered with itself to result in 0 probability of the cat.
Let's understand that word superposition was originally used to describe like gravitational effects, and like I was talking about magnetism earlier, where you can't change a field, you can just add to it. So you can put more gravity into a gravitational circumstance by adding another gravitational body, but you can't change the gravity that already previously existed. And the same is true with charges and everything else. You can't change what already exists as a force. All you can do is add some other force. So you can, if you have a bunch of positive charge, you can add a negative charge, and that'll pollute the positive charge, but you have to add it. You know, there's no superposition. Forces don't combine.
Ending up there. So if the bottom cat does end up there, it must not have been able to interfere with itself. So it must not have gone through both slits. So the other cat must have been blocking the middle slit. And if the top cat ends up in its previously cat-free spot, then it must not have gone through both slits either. The bottom cat must have been blocking the middle slit. This would...
Yes, again, the idea that people actually think that an electron, I mean, it's bad enough they think photons split in two, and they think photons are waves. But to think an electron is a wave is just so stupid. I mean, yes, it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to measure the intensity of light based on frequency, and then we'll give electrons an intensity by giving them a frequency, even though they don't have one, they just have a momentum. That's one thing, but to actually visualize an electron as a wave, and again, these are waves that don't spread and don't do any of that stuff. They land as discrete corpuscles. They hit locations, very tiny locations, individual specific locations. I mean, a cathode ray tube in a TV, it was scanning across the whole TV. Wait, do you think it was shooting a wave to this corner, and then it scanned across the whole TV 300 times a second and you know, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Wouldn't be a problem, except that when you actually do this experiment, some of the time both cats end up...
They never did this experiment, so this is just horseshit.
...up in the previously cat-free spots. And we know that they can't both have gone through the middle slit, because they would have annihilated each other. So each cat must have been...
We don't know any of such thing, so more horseshit.
...blocked from going through the middle slit by the other cat having gone through the middle slit simultaneously, which of course seems impossible and is why this situation has been called a paradox. And it's certainly thought-provoking if you like to think about local realism or contextuality.
So again, no links to any of these stupid papers. You know, and again, here's the word entanglement and weak values. You know, this is just such a again, jumping way past hard evidence, way past it.
Or weak measurement values, or the interaction between classical logic and quantum.
So again, classical logic. So now they think logic, they somehow made quantum logic. No, I don't think so. Logic is merely combining facts, and that's not what you people do. You jump over facts.
Mechanics. But it's not really that surprising, as long as you believe that quantum particles can be in superpositions.
Yeah, which again is just more crap. I mean, the idea is that they can't interact. And so even if they were in the same place at the same time, which is stupid, the point is there's no evidence they ever interact. So they'll just pass through that phase.
Which happens all the time and has been incredibly well experimented.
Okay, it happens all the time experimentally, yeah. So more of this jargon about how they prove something or they've demonstrated it. Just like, again, they keep saying every time they find something that is altered, they find a broken clock. So every time they move a clock fast and they find that it breaks, they say Einstein validated. And no, what you validated is that speed breaks clocks. Just such overstatement, preposterous exaggeration of the depth of their evidence.
Confirmed. As we said earlier, the two cats pass through the slits in the superposition top-middle plus middle-bottom plus top-bottom, which includes both apparently necessary blockages of the middle slit by one cat or the other. And it's this superposition...
Well, they can't, the cat never gets through, you're saying, because they annihilate. So you can't have it both ways. One cat gets through, one cat doesn't.
That results in the changed interference pattern that allows for the possibility that both cats simultaneously end up in the previously cat dark.
All right, so what's the point to make here? Yeah, so if you read here too, this is this Mach-Zehnder interferometer, which uses two beam splitters. So essentially, one beam splitter is a beam combiner. And then the other part here was something about polarization was in here. This crap. So instead of talking about what this experiment, how it was really done, he's using a fake. This wasn't done.
Locations. If all of this seems a bit weird, yeah, it is. But it's worth remembering that weirdness and paradox are not one and the same. And the quantum double slit experiment, whether you do it with cats or with electrons or photons, is fully consistent.
Yes, no, if you do it with cats, it won't work at all. If you do it with big pieces of atomic structure, well, then you can actually measure what slit it went through. So why don't you do that? Instead of keep making up these fake experiments that you never did. You're fakers. Oh, we have some comments. I pop 2 pills till my pupils swell up like penises. Okay, well, fuck you. And such. So, Francis Ford Coppola's butt mole. Well, whatever. Won't even bother with that one. Very, their critiques are just so brilliant.
With the predictions and experimental results of quantum mechanics, sometimes the universe is just weird.
Yeah, it says you again. So just, why would we think the universe is weird? Why? And it's weird in what? The place we have to go to find, like all the other stuff, not too much weird. All this regular big stuff, no weirdness. The cosmos, not all that much weirdness. Oh, where do you find the weirdness? Oh, in the place that you can't see very well. I mean, this is religion. So, you have a lack of information, so you just make up a bunch of wooey bullshit.
If you or somebody you know who maybe you're looking for a present for are the kind of person who likes to dive deep into quantum...
Yeah, that's right. Brilliant. It's a fucking bullshit website that can't even, doesn't even have an accurate description of the 2-slit experiment either. It can't handle the truth. Bullshit everywhere, sadly. No, just the rest of the videos commercials. How cool is that? Yeah, one big long commercial. Ugh, disgusting. I hate this planet. Oh, let's see what kind of dopey comments. Let's see if there's anything else here we can view. No, that's Electro Boom guy celebrating 2 million subs. Fucking pussy. Lost secrets of Nikola Tesla. There's no secrets. There's so much mythology. Brain magic. I'm sure that's a piece of crap. Oh, here, this ought to be a nice piece of crap. Life on Europa. Yeah, absolutely no evidence of that. It's terrible. Oh, pretty much crap. At some point, the cat metaphor actually makes it hard to follow. And that point was now. Cat analogy didn't help much. It would have been much better with electrons. Well, again, it wasn't. He's mixing electrons and positrons. Are the alternative of apparently horizontally polarized light and vertically polarized light. But we don't have any evidence that was done either. So, again, no, why wouldn't he leave a reference to the experiment or the paper or something? I mean, nothing. Just a bunch of bullshit. Just horrible crap. No, anyway. I'll hang around a little longer, but yeah, maybe this wasn't a great idea. Yeah, probably don't need to do a room. So this is the image of the interferometer. So you go through a beam splitter, hit 2 mirrors, hit 2 more mirrors, then go back into the beam splitter. The beam combiner. And they use half silvered mirrors again. So again, more, most of them. I can only say it 4 million times, but nobody's given me any explanation how a half silvered mirror could possibly create 2 equal beams of light. The light that goes between the pieces of mirror has to be diffracted. It's a single slit. It's a tiny opening. It's a small aperture. It has to diffract the light. This whole beam splitter thing is just such crap. So it is this, some of this is sort of annoying because, not that I have anything against India, but I mean, like 70% of the videos are are Indian, and even the ones who speak English have such a harsh accent. You can barely understand them. So it's a little bit unsatisfying and such. Well, I guess we can see if Ken Wheeler's up to anything. And he's here, somewhere around here. Yeah, so I saw this magnet disaster, epic pissed off. And he's complaining because when they shipped his magnets, they all clumped together. They're stuck to each other. And he's complaining about how it's impossible to take them apart. But, I mean, magnets just slide right off of each other fairly easy. So you just slide them apart, no problem. So all this drama, and there's no drama. So, and so he's doing a bunch of complaining after somebody else spent the money to buy him stupid magnets. Disgusting, depressing. So I don't think we have much else here. Speed racer, I don't think so. That's the science guy, science, whatever the hell he is. That's no good. Yeah, so guess I could see if there's any new comments in the last half hour. Hey, there is. Amazing. Oh, look, it's Amendum. Good to see you still around and using Linux. Cheers. Okay, now. Blah, 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 blah. Michael Falwell. Off topic, but hope you have a good Christmas, Gary, and all the best for the year ahead. Yeah, well, it's not going to be a great year. Yeah. It's not. Probably have to move, and it's going to be horrible, and blah, blah, blah. But thanks. Yeah, so that's tolerable comments. We'll accept those. If there's any new subscriptions. Nope, nothing worth watching. Did listen to this holiday message by Sean Carroll. He's a good talker. Blah blah blah. So he fills up the 40 minutes with a bunch of nothing. I really don't. I don't see the point in doing subjects for which he's not known. In a way, I mean, it's physics videos are the only ones I have any interest in, and the other ones that I have listened to were horrible. But the physics ones were horrible too, because all these physics people are full of shit. I mean, had the LIGO jerk on. I mean, there's no scrutiny of theory or any of it. It's just let's just talk about how great gravitational waves are. They never really saw any of those stupid things. So, Steven Spielberg's left nut. Cowboy again, no doubt. All right. Waste of time. What do we see when we do the single hair experiment? Yeah, you see a lot of diffraction, especially with my hair, because some of the light goes through the hair. But anyway, yeah, I have fun with your unification theory BS. Whatever, I'm going to go FMS clause. Well, whatever that is, but yeah, fuck you. In touch. I commented on Fractal Woman's new video. With the conclusion, what did she say in the end? I mean, it just seemed like a whole bunch of babble about, I'm going to make a distinction between intensity of something and energy. When there's no distinction between energy and intensity. I mean, those are pretty much interchangeable words. And so, it was just such a, I thought it was kind of a useless game she was playing, saying, these aren't the proper quantities in E equals mc squared. And I don't think the equation is really useful for quantizing anything. The equation is just useful for understanding that there's a hell of a lot of pressure inside of atoms, energy. that can be released. And that's about all the equation's good for. I don't think you're supposed to take it too literally. I mean, I really don't think there's any real equation derived that leads you to c squared having something to do with the quantization of energy. That's just too silly. You know, that somehow those two things would be connected. You know, the speed of light and the smallest bit of energy. Those two things really don't need to be connected at all. And so just squaring, it just looks like something you just sort of, well, let's create the constant. So this is like sort of creating a constant. You know, it's like saying what's going to be your first bit of measurement to compare all other measurements to. So you use this quantity, but it's just arbitrary. You could use anything squared. You know, how many inches in the circumference of the Earth squared? It doesn't, you know, it really doesn't matter what you use. Let's see, another stupid name. I would like to make a documentary about a man. So it's got to throw my name in there for no reason. Well, why don't you go do that? And I hope you slip on something like your own shit and die. Yeah, slip on your own shit and die. It is funny how they have so little life. You know, that yeah, even on the Christmas Eve, they have nothing to do but make up little fake stupid names for their little fake accounts and then say something stupid. It's amazing. What a great life they have. I mean, it's hard to feel bad about my circumstances when you think about, oh, I could be one of those losers. Pathetic insect. Yeah, I'm still trying to remember what the fractal woman's conclusion was. At the end of her video, she said some sort of, it was just like, no, wrong answer. She was comparing it to something. I can't remember what it was, but yeah. I don't see how it can go anywhere. I mean, part of her argument I could agree with in the sense that I don't think the elemental bits that make photons don't come in different intensities. You know, it's all the same stuff. And it's just more or less of it. So the higher the frequency, the more in a period of time you can fit in. So the closer things are together, the more you can shove in a box. But it's only true if you're measuring things. Like I said, I know what they're really doing is measuring how it affects electrons, which again just has to do with what electrons are vulnerable to. It's like saying, you know, you push one neutron into a radioactive material and you can cause a chain reaction. Well, it's not because the one neutron had a ton of energy. It's because it had the right energy to, shatter everything. A little bit too much juice in here. Oh, 15 people, you should be able to say something. I guess I should have had another video to play, but they're all too annoying. You know, they're just terrible. I mean, I did subscribe to a bunch of these people I don't like much. But their videos are like unwatchable. I mean, you can watch them the night before Fismus. Oh, God. I mean, that's got to be like, you just want to blow your brains out. Flat Earth disproved. Gee, that's such a hard task. The best test of general relativity. Well, I guess we could do that one. That'll be horseshit. So they keep saying that you're testing relativity by finding a circumstance where velocity changes matter. Not interesting.
Hello. Like now I can move it. So this is good. This is good. You're working. Can you see me? I can see you. Do you know what went wrong during the launch?
Yes. Not complicated, but it's a long chain of events.
On August 22nd, 2014, 2 satellites were launched by the European Space Agency.
They're called Galileo satellites 5 and 6.
They were intended to become part of the Global Navigation Satellite System, or GNSS.
So this is the European version of the American GPS systems.
Now, after successfully blasting off into space,
The satellites were launched with the Russian Soyuz rocket.
the final stage of the rocket was set to inject the satellites into circular orbits around 23,000 kilometers above the Earth. But that is when something went wrong.
There was thermal breach between a line of cold helium and a line of propellant.
So the propellant, it froze.
This caused the failure of the attitude control thrusters.
The satellites seem to have been injected into some random direction.
It was launched, but in the wrong direction.
This sent the satellites into highly elliptical and seemingly useless orbits.
At the low point, the satellites didn't really get a full view of Earth.
Earth sensors, which enable them to orient their navigation antennas, stopped working because the Earth just filled their field of view. At the other extreme, the satellites went too high, experiencing significant radiation exposure due to the Van Allen belts.
There was a threat that they would just shut them off.
Okay, who do we have to talk to make sure they keep these satellites alive?
They had an idea for how to use them to make the best test of general relativity.
Oh, bullshit. So again, you know, they have broken satellites, and that's going to be a test of relativity.
Today.
This was a strike of luck for us. We had been proposing such missions. When we saw that this accident happened, we were very happy about that, of course.
Now, the satellites did have propellant on board, intended to allow for periodic course corrections over their planned 10-year lifespan. And they could use that fuel to attempt to correct their orbits.
So
they're only showing one satellite, so both satellites failed the same way. That doesn't seem a little bit improbable.
they used the propellant on board.
They did some of these maneuvers to bring them in a stable orbit.
But they didn't have enough to completely turn their elliptical orbits into circular ones.
They couldn't circularize completely, hopefully for our project.
According to general relativity, relative to a reference clock, clocks tick slower in stronger gravitational fields.
So again, it has nothing to do with gravity. It has to do with velocity. The thing on the Earth is accelerating more. It's being bounced in the gravity. Right now, you're sitting somewhere, you're standing somewhere, you're still accelerating 10 meters per second. Your atoms are moving. Your electrons or protons are moving. That's how they put pressure on the ground, or that's how they put pressure on your chair, is because they moved. So, and then they have to move back when the Earth pushes back. So they're going like this constantly. And then you're spinning on the Earth. So you're basically aleasing. And the aleasing you do on the surface of the Earth is whatever, 1,000 times more intense than the aleasing at 23,000 miles. That aleasing is very slow because the gravity is much weaker. So they don't alease as much. So they don't travel as much distance. If I bounce a basketball very fast, it travels lots of distance. If I bounce it very slow and I'm running, it travels a lot less distance. So its actual velocity is different. These are scientists. They can't think. They can't figure out that this is about something other than just being in gravity. It's a velocity equation, and everything is fucked up by giving it velocity.
That is to say, closer to large masses like the Earth, deeper in gravitational wells. So clocks and satellites should tick faster relative to those on Earth because they're in weaker gravitational fields.
Right, but it has nothing to do with the strength of the gravity in the sense that that's not what's affecting the clock. The clock is not affected by gravity. The clock is affected by speed.
Here, I'm ignoring the special relativistic effect that works the other way, making clocks and satellites tick slower than those on Earth because they're moving so much faster.
This velocity effect is very well tested. So we focused on the gravitational part.
The gravitational...
Yeah, that's fine because one part is more substantial, but the point is you're still not recognizing that it's not gravity that's doing it. It's the acceleration that causes velocity that's doing it.
Effect is hard to measure precisely for satellites in circular orbits, but satellites in elliptical orbits have an advantage. In every orbit, they go from their lowest position, perigee, to the highest position, apogee, and back.
If you want to test the gravitational redshift of a clock, you need two things. You need a very accurate clock, and you need a large change in gravitational potential.
The satellite goes from 17,000 to 26,000 kilometers.
Yeah, so it's not all that huge, but yes, it's fine.
Difference in altitude is almost 9,000 kilometers, meaning they are rapidly and repeatedly going from lower gravitational potential to higher gravitational potential and back. So clocks on board should be ticking slower when they're closer to the Earth, and then faster when they go to their high point, and they'll keep...
Right, and that just has to do with their velocity is also changing. Again, it's just this aleasing, the bouncing. So when they're close to the Earth, they're bouncing faster. The basketball player's bouncing the ball more times. When they're further from the Earth, he's taking his time. Boom, 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 boom. Less distance, less velocity in the actual travel. So obviously the line close to the Earth is a smaller line, but again, you have to think that the basketball isn't moving the speed of the basketball player. The basketball is moving the speed of the up and down motion, and that's dictating its real velocity.
Keep oscillating back and forth, slower and faster relative to clocks on Earth.
Yeah, I think John says something here. FW sees bugs all over physics. FW. Who the fuck is FW?
If you compare the clock on the ground and the clock in the satellite, then you will have this variation of time.
Now, what's great about this is it allows you to eliminate a lot of sources of error, because you don't really care about the absolute accuracy of the clocks. All you want to know is the difference between the rate of ticking at the low point compared to the high point. And since it's the same clock making the measurements at both locations, you can eliminate a lot of errors like the noise in the clock or a systematic drift. And that's what allows...
So they just pointed out how at the high orbit, it's in danger of going through the Van Allen belt. So it's clearly a more dangerous. The higher the orbit gets, the more dangerous it gets. If, and the closer the orbit, the more atmospheric effect it's going to be affected by. So again, just more. No, you haven't really eliminated other causes. But again, I don't disagree with the conclusion. I just disagree with the logic used to get to the conclusion.
How the scientists to achieve such incredible precision?
Why we could do it is because it's a periodic effect.
Due to the eccentricity of the orbit, the signal we were looking for is really the...
All right, so yeah, fractal woman. Yeah. Oh yeah, well that bug part. If you actually watch her video, yeah. Oh, that where she does that little buggy queer thing. That was just so gay. It was like, oh, just cooties all over the place. That part was a little hard to watch.
Modulation.
All the other effects that are at other periods, they will not have an influence on your measurements.
Now,
so again, he says they don't have an influence on the measurements, but of course they can. So if the satellite's getting ionized, it's probably going to fuck up the clock.
I should point out that if you were traveling with the satellite, for you, time would not speed up and slow down. Time would be passing at a constant rate. You wouldn't be able to measure any change in the rate the clock is ticking.
That's because you have your own stupid fucking clock. Damn, these people just forget about it. They're just too stupid. So of course, relative to the Earth, you would watch if you could accelerate this thing to half the speed of light or something, you would see real effects in the fact that if you have a window and you can look, if you're in the satellite and the satellite's going half the speed of light and you have a window, you'll see the rest of the universe going flipping crazy. It's going to be going so fast. Everything's going to be just happening, and you won't even be able to see it. It's happening. It'll be a blur. It's happening so fast, and you'll recognize, holy fuck, I'm going really fast because that shit is flying by my window way too fast.
Relativity comes when you...
And you have to be a complete idiot to think the rest of the universe all of a sudden picked up half the speed of light in momentum. That would be really dumb.
Compare two clocks, which are distant enough to feel the curvature of space and time.
Now, the clocks on the satellites, there are a couple different types, are all atomic clocks.
The primary clock typically is a passive hydrogen maser clock.
A maser is just like a laser, except it uses microwaves. Atoms of hydrogen interact with one specific frequency of microwaves. A photon of precisely this frequency will flip the spin of an electron. So by tuning the microwaves so that they best interact with the hydrogen atoms, and then...
It doesn't do any of this flipping the spin crap. So it's some other thing. Like it's the electron produces some voltage, some other thing happens. They're not measuring the fucking spin of anything. It's just such horse shit. So instead of just telling you what it actually does, they tell you what they think it does. Which I just hate.
Counting up exactly this number of cycles of that radiation, that's 1 second, you can keep track of time with incredible stability. In fact, over 30 million years, a clock like this would not be out by more than a second. Again, if you were traveling with the satellite, you would always observe the frequency of this radiation to be the same. But if you sent this radiation out to a distant observer who is not in a strong gravitational field, well, they would observe the frequency of your microwaves to be slightly lower than those from their...
They would observe a lot worse than that, because if you're moving away from them, it's going to get red shifted to pieces, and if you're moving towards them, it's going to get blue shifted to pieces. So that's more horse shit.
Hydrogen maser. In other words, red-shifted. And the closer the satellite is to Earth, the more red-shifted the microwaves would appear, and hence the slower time would pass relative to that distant observer.
Locally, you cannot see any relativistic effect. This is called the equivalence principle.
Which is horse shit. Again, there's no equivalence. There's just, let's pretend we don't have windows. There's, yes, the physical forces are physical forces. I mean, you can't change, there's a real force effect. You have a velocity, you've changed the world you exist in. And that's just a fact. And you're going to change how you can interact with the rest of the world because you're moving really fast. And those are facts. None of that goes away. And this relativity bullshit just has to do with the fact that nobody has a window. But if you have a window, relativity is nonsense. And certainly equivalency is nonsense because you'll be able to see it's not an elevator you're in, or it's not gravity. You'll be able to tell the difference. Oh, I'm in an elevator. Oh, okay. Now I know why I'm having these effects. All right, so we get rid of this. Who killed Kennedy? Fucking idiot. Old news, idiot. Conspiracy cougars. You're not supposed to respond to trolls there, John.
It's only when you compare the satellite clock to one on Earth that you would find the yo-yoing rate of the satellite's clock due to its oscillation back and forth in Earth's gravitational well. This gravitational redshift was previously measured most precisely in 1976. That's right, for over 40 years, we haven't improved our measurement of the gravitational effect on time. In 1976, Gravity Probe A was launched aboard a suborbital rocket. It went up in a parabolic trajectory, reaching a maximum altitude of 10,000 kilometers, and then it came down.
That gives you quite a lot of modulation in the gravitational potential.
The whole time it was in contact with the Earth through the microwave signal from the onboard hydrogen maser.
And then they did a direct frequency comparison. So they really did a two-way microwave link.
This allowed for a direct comparison of the rate at which a clock would tick on the rocket relative to a clock on Earth. The results matched the predictions of general relativity down to 140.
Again, the predictions, they weren't predictions. They were things we'd already noticed over and over and over again with different decaying particles being moved, like muons and other things. So they already knew the formula. There's no prediction. They knew it because they'd already seen it. Shit.
Parts per million. Now, the scientists I'm talking to were eventually able to convince those in charge of the satellites to let them use their misfortune to test the gravitational redshift predictions of general relativity. But actually carrying out the test wasn't easy. One of the biggest sources of error was the positions of the satellites. Now, you'd think in the emptiness of space, the satellites would perfectly maintain their orbits, but that neglects the power of sunlight.
The photons of the sun bouncing on the satellites is the biggest source of error.
That's right. The momentum of photons hitting the satellites was enough to significantly impact the measurement. Careful modeling plus laser ranging to the satellites brought the orbital uncertainties down to an acceptable level.
Well, whatever, says you. I don't see why this is complicated. Why don't you just let it count a second and at one orbit and count a second at the other orbit, and you'll find out the 2 seconds aren't the same length. So what's the big deal? Why is this why do I have to even know where the damn thing is? You're supposed to be just comparing how it counts when it's in the low orbit and how it counts when it's in the high orbit. What's so complicated?
One way to improve the statistics was by collecting data over more than 1,000 days. That's almost 3 years, unlike Gravity Probe A, which spent only 2 hours in space. So, what did they find?
I think we both agree that we did not prove relativity wrong. Yeah?
The result is that we confirm the general.
Yeah, well, the result is we don't know anything about what your data is, how good or bad it is. So we'll just say it. Yes, we confirm it. Eddington experiment. Yes. Well, it's crap, and the data is but yeah, we'll just say yes. Good. We done it. We done it. Happy holidays. I saw this video too. So the predictions are rigged essentially. I don't think I said that. Man, I gotta learn how they do this stuff. I don't know. I mean, it's going to take you a few months probably to figure out how they're actually compiling the data and then how they're analyzing the data.
Activity. unfortunately.
They were able to reduce the uncertainty in the measurement by a factor of 5 over gravity probe A. So it's a new high score, the first in over 40 years. But what is the point?
You say unfortunately.
Yeah. You know, what we are looking for is a deviation from general relativity, because we know this is not the ultimate theory.
History has taught us that new physics
Yes, there. See, they're conceding their theory is mush, okay, and that the truth is some underlying thing. And like I said, they're not even trying to find the underlying thing, which is, well, when you move something, it means there's force inside of it. For it to keep moving, it means it actually has forces in it that have changed. The moving object is different from the stationary object in absolute space. So something that's quiet, not moving, is physically different than something that is moving. The forces inside of it are in a different arrangement, and that matters.
lies at the boundaries, that more and more precise tests sometimes reveal brand new aspects of nature that we never would have observed if we had not made the effort to look. And there are good reasons to believe that general relativity may not be the whole story. Both it and quantum mechanics are spectacularly successful theories in their own.
Oh, whatever. Spectacularly successful. It's just amazing. It's just a fucking quantification of observed phenomenon, and they call it successful. So they see the cat climb a tree, and then they have this theory that, oh, cats can climb trees. And then every time they see a cat climb, look, it's validation of the fact that cats can climb trees. We predicted that because we saw it. That's not a prediction. When you see something, that's not, and then you say, oh, that something might happen again. That's not a prediction. All right, I know quite a bit, but not enough. I wanted to do a degree in physics, but Einstein relativity made me shy away and do math first instead. Yeah, well, frankly, math and its irrational numbers and its, what's the other one they use? Those C word, what's the C word they use for some sort of silly, synthetic equations? It's just so annoying. I don't think that math is going to get you anywhere.
Rights. But for nearly a century, all attempts to merge the two have been more or less failures.
Yeah, it's because you're trying to merge them into, you're trying to force bent space to be wavy, or you're trying to force wave to be benty, instead of just saying both of those concepts are silly, and why don't you try to get to the truth? You got to start over. You can't mix bad theory with bad theory to get good theory. They're two stupid premises, and you got to move on.
Plus, our current worldview includes dark energy and dark matter.
Yes, which are just completely made up bullshit. No evidence at all. So just completely synthetic, made up horse shit to fix your broken math. So you have a wrong theory, and you create fake things to fix your wrong theory. And then say, well, we've already, now that we've established they're true because they fix our broken math. I mean, does that make any sense? No, it doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Imaginary numbers. Yeah, well, that's, irrational, imaginary, and then there's a C word for, there's a C word, complex numbers. Yeah, maybe that's it, complex numbers. You'll find it's much more amazing than you think. No, I won't. I've got enough taste of that crap. Fuck it.
To make up more than 90% of everything there is in the universe.
The fact that this is out there and it's not understood tells me that maybe we don't know everything.
It's out there and it's not understood. It's invisible. It's not out there. You're just claiming it's out there, but you don't even understand that galaxies are expanding, not contracting. I mean, they think that, this really is the truth, right? They actually think the galaxy is supposed to be like a solar system and somehow everything's static. When, and they already have the fact that they know that the old galaxies, when they see them, are little tiny dots of high intensity. So clearly in the past, galaxies were much smaller and had much more energy. And then what has changed? Oh, you mean they've gotten bigger and have less energy. So yeah, maybe they're expanding, not contracting. Has anybody tested that theory? No. Ugh, it's so irritating.
About gravity already.
Well, more tests are planned to further probe general relativity and determine if there's a test it can't pass.
So again, passing a test, and the test has nothing to do with the theory of relativity. It has to do with whether it's a fact that velocity breaks clocks. Is that or is that not a fact? That, you know, we don't have a clock mechanism that we know of that can survive velocity.
Cesium atom clock is set to fly on the International Space Station, and it aims to reduce the deviation by a further factor of 10. As for the satellites, their orbits were made more circular using the propellant on board, though they are still elliptical. Their navigation signals have been
You already said that.
tested and are within acceptable parameters. For the moment, they are restricted to test mode, awaiting some new software and modifications on the ground, but the hope is that they will be useful for navigation after all. And in the meantime, they hope.
They hope. Yeah, blah, 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 blah.
Hold the record for achieving the best test yet of general relativity.
Says you. So what outside person analyzed the data, analyzed the algorithms, analyzed how they performed the experiment? So these two guys say so, everybody just says, okay, I'll trust you.
Hey, this episode of Veritasium was supported by viewers like you on Patreon and by Audible. And for viewers of this video, Audible is offering a
more commercials, blah, blah, blah. So I don't have ads, I just have commercials. So, fuck you. Maybe so much more politeable just to say, oh, you know, if you like this show, support it. Thanks. It's annoying. That was horrible, but they're all horrible. Horrible, 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 horrible. It's all horrible. You know, they keep doing more and more complex experiments. They haven't done the simple ones right yet. So, yeah, but it really is, you know, I hate this. There's just nothing to watch. Like every single physics video is a piece of shit. Yeah, sadly. It's just all wrong. Hey, there's Mr. Natural. Yay. ABC's a fixed system, part 4. Learn to be more musical. I wish I had time to be more musical, but yeah, too many things to do. Why string theory is wrong. This was a really stupid video because it really wasn't explaining why it's wrong. The guy was essentially making justifications for it. But what a pile of convoluted crap. I mean, these videos are so... You're saying nobody understands what the fuck this asshole's talking about. I mean, how many people really understand enough about string theory to, you know, for somebody to start talking about Lagrangian strangeacities and blah, blah, all this bullshit? Nobody knows what the fuck he's talking about. Oh, I already played some of these. Chemistry of coal. That's a little bit interesting, but I just haven't clicked on it yet. I probably won't. Yeah. Crap. Crap, 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 crap. I couldn't understand how they can conclude perturbation theory wasn't enough to solve the equations in string theory, I think. No, the problem is they had to keep creating dimensions because they had to have a rug to sweep all the extra energy under and to gain extra energy from. I mean, string theory only has extra dimensions because it needs extra dimensions to get rid of all the errors it creates. It's just a bullshit. I mean, it's just made out of nothing. I mean, it's a silly premise. Vibrating strings and then little vibrating circles. It's the jellyfish theory. You know, there's little jellyfish. The universe is made out of little jellyfish. It's stupid. Energy without a source. It's just more mush. Look, I mean, as long as they keep the Einstein bent space, they're not going to understand that the biggest force in the universe is gravity. That's the, that's the big one. And it's moving really big things. So yes, it appears weak because it's moving big things and it's a big force. But that's the source of the energy for magnetism and electricity and everything else, for photon. All the energy in the atom has been created by gravity. Gravity smashed the atoms together. And having them smashed together, they have to have a counter force. So by not understanding that gravity is a force, then they don't understand that the atom has to have just as much energy pushing out to be fighting the force in. So because they don't understand that the universe is a push mechanism, not a pull mechanism, they've missed the source of energy for everything because they didn't get the first frickin' force right. So they have to dump Einstein. Ken Wheeler won't debate anyone. He keeps talking about how he's won all these debates and he's this great fighter for truth. And I've never seen him do any one-on-one with anyone on the subject of physics ever. Nor have I seen him really cite anything called evidence. Well, I think perturbation theory sounds right on its face stupid. Okay, so that's my opinion. Perturbation. Nothing perturbates without a cause for its perturbation. The only thing that perturbates perpetually is a force bit, a photon, a virtual photon, a bent space-aton. The things that cause effects, yeah, they perturbate. But I just don't see any, I don't see any reason to turn things that aren't waves into waves. I mean, waves aren't even made out of waves. The only thing that waves are things that have adhesion. The molecules have adhesion. There's no waves in sand. So it's just such bullshit that they can somehow create a tense universe and then perturbate in straight lines. I mean, why would the universe waste time, with dominoes flipping, when all it has to do is flick the domino to the location? It doesn't have to waste its time doing perturbating. It can just flip it. Just send the domino over there. Holy shit. That is not good. Computer just fell off the damn table. Very bad. very, very bad. Oh, total disaster bad. Fuck. I knew I was going to pay for this. The change I made, my cords are too short. So apparently I must have moved it just enough to knock it off its stand. I just have a motherboard on the thing. The motherboard fell over and the power supply fell on top of it. So not good. Anyway, so it's probably a good reason to quit. Wave is in action. I can't believe we have this stupid duality. Yeah, well, you know, wave is a complex function among particles in tension. And that's all. It's just a transfer of pressure among particles that are tied to each other. That's it. You know, everything else is just stuff at a frequency. While you were talking about gravity, yes, gravity happened. Annoyingly. Yes. The good news is I actually have two motherboards that are exactly the same. They both have defects, but so if I have to, I can just switch the processor and the memory and go through all that horseshit. You know. But yeah, it's irritating. I actually pulled the video card out the slot, so that's dangerous. Might have fucked the video card. I don't even know which, I don't know what this one is. An old HP, I know that. So it was a board used in an old HP. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's how bad the capacitors are. I don't know why they don't have, frankly, you know, why they don't recognize the problem. I mean, it's been around for a long time. I mean, all the old video cameras, you know, I had a few of the older video cameras, and all of them, they die, you know, because of the capacitors. And yeah, it's such a dominant problem, but I almost think that they do it on purpose, right? Because, you know, if it wasn't for the capacitors, the motherboard should last a really long time, and maybe they just don't want them to. But it is funny that it's just still an issue, and you're just like, well, why don't they just put a precision capacitor on the damn board? I mean, why? You're only talking about 8 capacitors, so you're talking about what, $2 worth of parts, and even if you spent $4, I mean, that's not going to break you as a motherboard manufacturer. Oh, I had to spend an extra $2. Come on. Yeah, it's hard to figure. But they don't actually look cheap. I mean, when you know, I've pulled them off, you know, they look like pretty good capacitors, but I just don't know why they, it seems to me that it's a capacity issue. So it just means if you made the capacitor a little bit bigger or a little bit better, that, yeah, it shouldn't blow up. Sir, oh, the Sunder Sir stuff again. Do you have any videos explaining double slit experiment as related to your theory? Yeah, there's only about 200 of them. I think I made a playlist, of like 40 of them that I made in the last year. So there's a playlist on the channel page of double slit videos. I suspect they just analyzed the capacitors over the decades would fail roughly 3 to 4 years just after warranty, planned obsolescence. Yeah, well, that's sort of, you're got to suspect it just because, like I said, it's been around for 35, 40 years as a problem. At least 30 years. For 30 years, capacitors have been a problem. So it just seems like, well, why wouldn't they fix that? You know, it's like Social Security numbers. People have been stealing them for 30 or 40 years. Why don't you fix that? You know, why don't you give us real security numbers instead of these fake ones that don't even detail who I am or where I am or anything about me? I mean, theoretically, it should be pretty much impossible to steal a dead person's Social Security number, right? That should be impossible. You know, this stuff is easy to fix, not hard. So it's not fixed on purpose. So, you know, when these, these lying Republicans talk about how they want to fix immigration, they don't want to fix it because it's easy to fix. Me so stupid. Hope it didn't undo my wires. I have about 17 spliced wires on that board. Anyway, thank you. Merry Christmas. Oh, that's nice. But I really don't do Christmas. But whatever. Have a pleasant day. No, I guess I'll go. Let's just find out whether I have the whole mess to fix now. So that's just going to distract me. So anyway, it's worth trying this anyway. See if I can get the quality a little better of the video. Just, you know. I don't know. Linux does a lot of things good. It just doesn't do some things very well. But anyway, what do I have to open? I forgot how to do these live rooms. I guess I open this thing. Yeah, that's the one. All right, so till the next time and such. Thanks. Yeah, 23. Boy, I probably should hang around, but hell with it. Till next time. I'll probably show up again tomorrow sometime. Morning, maybe, whatever. Just for the fun of it. And such.